Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
Oh, thank you for the little bell ringing. Um, Tinkle Bell View. I I would like for you to introduce our topic. I'm still like wrangling with this one.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the 41st gene key from the Gene Keys book written by Richard Rudd. And this gene key is moving from the shadow. There's three different states of consciousness in this gene key. Okay. So the
In
shadow
each key. Yeah.
in each gene key, and this is the 41st, and it's called the prime emanation. And so the shadow of it is fantasy. And the acidic state, which is the highest state, is emanation, but we get there through the gift, which is anticipation. So
Yeah.
I think the words,
The words we need to define them the way he is because I think everybody has a weird, I don't know.
okay. So before we begin this, what I understand about this time frame right now in this
Yeah.
now moment during the 41st gift, it is the start codon ring. It is the beginning. So you think of our calendar year being like the start of the year. This is the start of the year.
And this key, this particular gene key, is not associated with any of the amino acids like all the other ones are. This is called a start codon. And so at the beginning of every one of our billions of cells, our genes, we have this codon,
It's called
like going
the initiator.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like start. This is a new thing. Start here. So it's a and the fact that it shows up, of course, astronomically, energetically, historically, that this is where it falls into alignment. And I remember thinking very much about the fluidity of a new year, that you have really the month of January up really until February 2nd, the old pagan holiday of Imbolc, to celebrate this whole new year, to kick it off, to put your plant your seeds and get them in the ground. So it's very interesting that we're doing this conversation today because it's the second day of this cycle,
Yeah.
celebrating the start of our codon.
Well, and I appreciate this because when I think of about the start, I mean, he even Richard talks about it in the 64 ways about the start codon being much like when you think about the tarot, it's the zero, right? It's the fool. It's the beginning of something new. And I don't know about everybody else, but I know I've been going through my own rebirth. So I'm in that space right now. So it feels a little wonky.
Oh no, not little. I would say that it's really, I described it to a spiritual sister, soul sister of mine last night in a text. She said, "How are you feeling and flowing with all of this?" And I said, "Well, there is so much emotionally, energetically moving. I can feel my body, like literally the cells shifting, like what I used to eat doesn't work anymore. I have to change my food." So, I
I
mean,
know. I
physio-
yeah.
physiologically, not counting spiritually. So, and we've had two deaths in friends of the family in less than a week. We've had so just and some major emotional trauma stuff just all around me. And she said, "Well, where are you in it?" I said, "I feel like I'm in the eye of the storm. Like
Mm,
I can see it all.
mm.
I can kind of feel buffered by it, but I'm not in it." And I don't know if that's because something has shifted in me to be able to go, you know what? Oh, how Richard says in this gene key, he talks about, and you know what? It always ends well. And I thought, I feel like that. No matter what happens, this is a big year. I can feel it. We can all feel. not just election year, but whoa, the wars, there's a lot spinning up, and we are at a choice point, you know? And so where will the tipping point lie? I don't, we don't know.
Well, it's interesting because he talks about the 41st shadow creating that continual pressure within humans to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is out of this shadow of like wanting this, beauty or whatever it is. I mean, we create it. So it's anything that keeps us from our joy. So deep disappointment, pain, grief, sorrow, depression, resentment, whatever it might be. It's the thing that's the impetus to have us acknowledge and create something different.
Yeah. And I think most of the shadows are that they are here for us to feel the pressure of them, the pain and the discomfort, so that we want to move into the other states.
Well, and it's the surrender too. It's the
Well, that. And so what I love about fantasy is if you look at the movie genres right now, how much sci-fi and fantasy and the Marvel films, or all of the um uh we want to be entertained. And so I'm like, well, what's wrong with I mean, immediately I took the word and I was like, but I sometimes think fantasy is a good thing. I mean, they even say, sex experts are saying, oh, but sexual fantasies are good. And I'm like, so what's wrong with fantasy? Can you
so
answer me, or do I have to answer me?
well, no. Well, this is what's interesting. The the 41st shadow of fantasy sets up the great Maya or illusion in which most human beings live. And so, as a primary evolutionary pressure, it triggers a false start into a mental representation of your life, thereby shortcutting your ability to live in the present moment. So, most times when you're in fantasy, you're living out there as opposed to being here. And so, then when you're not there, that's where the suffering comes in, because you're disappointed that you're not there yet, or you're
Yeah. And
space.
expectations. I remember so much. I don't know when I started this process of the brain looping in that direction, but expecting really high expectations that today's going to be a really good day. This vacation is going to be a really good vacation. My parents aren't going to fight on this. Whatever it was like I was dreaming at something that wasn't met. And that's where the disconnect comes. So fantasy has to do with dreaming. It has to do with wanting it to be a different way, like imagining it in a different way. But there's still, so then I don't know how this fits with anticipation, because then you're expecting, you're allowing something new to come in. How does that play?
I love this part, because this is where I have found a lot of juice. I used to always just say, anticipate without expectations, because it always gets better. Like, yeah, it's a deep trust. Oh my gosh, it is a deep trust in.
So without limitations.
Right.
Because our mind will immediately, when we put an expectation on something, it's very limited.
Right.
So that constraint keeps divine intelligence, or whatever we want to call the higher source, from giving us some major wowies. If we say, I only want this. Oh, we had this planned for you. And I'm like,
yeah, how good can it get? And most people are like, can't comprehend. And you're not meant to. I always giggle when I see those memes about how the how isn't up to us. We put it out there, and then we allow it to.
who's the what was the manifestation line that we used to use 10-15 years ago or longer? It was and I wonder how the universe is going to make that happen. So we kind of like, I'm curious. I don't know. And I'm getting myself out of the equation because I'm going to let you do the creative part.
Right.
And I love that because very often I go, oh, and I know how it's going to happen. Let me tell you how it's going to happen.
Well, that's where I think we always get stuck,
Okay,
because
so
we're
anticipation.
co-creating.
So is that more fantasy? Okay, this is where I get like anticipation can also be done with the shadow in it of not getting out of the way too, right?
The 41st gift has a single genetic agenda. It is always attuned to the next evolutionary energetic grid that is waiting to descend into form. So it is naturally there. There is no caught in the Maya or, into some shadow work. It is, I equate it to like, does a tree, have to think about it bursting out of its shell or whatever, like it out of a seed cracking, like, I
So
don't know
that's
what.
yeah. So is it that's more like dharma? Like I am just living into the beingness of what I'm here to be,
Right.
and versus let me plan how I'm going to be. I'm going to get my degree, and then I'm going to get my advanced degree, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
get married, and then I'm going to have children. Oh, and while I'm going to have children, I'm going to go back to law school. And I mean, I had it like
I know. I really been playing around with this because I just keep feeling this uncharted joy. Like we just don't know how good it can get. And we have played so many roles. I almost think that it's like, let's remember that we are playing roles, right? And if you don't like the characters or you don't like how you are showing up, guess what? You get to change.
uh, but what? But then who do we blame things on?
You don't. You don't.
I know.
It's all about stories. And I love the fact
I'm
that,
playing with you because I feel like these kinds of conversations are so rare. And I just want to appreciate that we can have them because I feel like so many people are like, I just saw a horrible statistic about um, uh, high blood pressure in women.
mm,
I mean, it is off the chart. I mean, we have like almost doubled our numbers in the last couple of years. And I'm wondering what it is about women feeling like we have to hold everything and manage it all. And whereas we know that there's so much more strength in community.
yeah,
So what I want to play with is how do we get a chance to really draw upon when you're in um, social, spiritual, sister circles, even work colleagues or support groups for some, you know, I watched this fantastic show. It's on Masterpiece through my local PBS channel. And we love to watch the detective series that they have. And there's one that's in French. It's a French autistic woman who has been aligning herself with the detectives because she has this photographic memory. She works in the archives, so she's memorized all the files. So she's like, oh, that happened this time, and she'd pull up. So and she loves puzzle solving, so you can see how her brain works. But the point is that you get a chance to see how awkward she goes to a social support group where she works with this guy is asking to spend time with me. I don't understand what he wants from me. And they're like, he likes you. And she goes, well, what does that mean? Like there's this, we just take so much for granted. And I feel like there's so much we can learn. Every week, she goes once or twice a week into this support group and they all process what it's like to live with these humans that are not really on, I mean, I think we're all on the scale of neurodivergent in some way or another,
yeah,
but to live with somebody who just, we have these social norms and she questions everything. And I kind of like that about her because
right.
she doesn't take anything for granted. She's like, oh, look at that. And we're like, oh, we would have gone right beyond that, you know? So anyway, my point being is the support, the community, the place to process, the place to learn from one another. This is what I am, after being a lone wolf for decades, highly recommended. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for being part of my support system.
Yeah, and I think we can certainly let people know that with the School of Light Collective, we are opening up a circle to have conversations like this. And so to have at least monthly meetings where we can come together to check in with one another.
Learn and grow with one another.
Yeah, so schooloflightcollective.com, and have that time together.
Absolutely. And so I'm pushing for the community thing because this type of material doesn't unfold. I mean, it can, but it's so much faster when we're in community, when we're in circle, when we're in a safe place to discover, be vulnerable, trust each other, grow together.
Yeah,
So
I think that's really important that people feel, excuse me, safe. And, I certainly, I am learning in my own beingness to open my heart even further. It's like,
yeah,
how good can it get? Well, yeah, you got to show a little bit of vulnerability. I like to
yeah,
process.
you got to have some skin in the game, man.
Right. I know.
And
Yeah,
that's
you
not
get over
fun
that
because we
fear
like to
part.
look good and we like to look like we know what we're talking about. And it's the other thing I was going to say is we're getting ready to launch this integral leadership learning lab. And we, the facilitators, have never done this before. And people are like, well, so what's the agenda? And we're like, well, we know that we're going to cover these things, but you know what? It's going to be what all you bring into the room.
Right.
It's a co-created, co-designed ecology,
That's
and
beautiful.
I that's what I feel School of Light will be in the more spiritual community realm, in the more healing, in the more expansion of our consciousness together, in the
Well,
evolution.
you're going to love this because this gene key is matched up with the 31st gene key. And both the gifts. I mean, this is when you go into anticipation, the gift of the 31st is leadership.
I love
And I think that's what we're doing, is leading our own lives and building something brand new out of this.
collectively leading the consciousness. So this is where somebody just asked me the other day. They said they're in an elected leader position, and they said, I get so tired because everybody expects me to have all the answers. And I was like, this is where we get to lead the way leadership is calling us forward, which means, you know what? I don't have the answer to that. Let's explore it together. And I said, you're going to have to do a little teaching of what this new way of leading is, what's emerging at this time. And she was like, oh, I said, you do not need, nobody expects you to have all the answers. They want that because that is an old adult development phase. It's the one that we're moving from, that socialized one where they're like, I need a savior. I need somebody to tell me what to do. I want my doctor to tell me what's wrong with me and how to fix it. Now we go in and we go, this is what I'm feeling is wrong with my body. Can we talk about options, both naturopathically, maybe the medical drug world, but also, are there some things I can do to support my whatever esophagus right now is my.
So I just feel like it's moving into such a different direction, and that's kind of what we're birthing.
If we want to, so this is exactly what we were doing. One of the things that they talk about, or Richard talked about, was when we move into the acidic state of emanation, this is what is the best way is through story. And I think we were both just kind of telling a little bit of stories about where and what is going on in our lives, so that is what is true. That is what is coming forth. We don't know where it's going to go. Like the story doesn't have an ending yet.
It's a never ending story.
Oh my God, that's where that comes from. Oh, I have to get that movie out. My kids will love that.
I mean, it's very interesting because when you look at the acidic state, it talks about the Ouroboros. I mean, it is the Ouroboros. It's the story, and it's the circle, right? And as we're
It's
on
the
our
snake eating its tail is the actual image.
right.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, each one of us has that journey. And so we all, it's not like we're devoid of this. I mean, we all have, like, I was saying something to some folks the other day, and I was like, it's really interesting. I feel like I'm a beginner all over again. And they're like, oh yeah, you're on the next loop.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is I always thought it was odd the way the gene keys, we start at life's work and then we go around and we come back to the life's work. And I'm like, oh, but that's what we do. How often do we loop around and we get to purpose, and then purpose is the beginning. We end the one sequence and begin another sequence from that same ending point. And I mean, my mind didn't like that because it didn't make logical sense. Like I wanted to have a sentence with a period and then a capital letter of the new sentence. And it was like, no, 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 the period is the beginning of the next sentence. I'm like, oh, so I know. Blow my brains, please. So this is so good. So let's talk a little bit about, do we want to say anything more about anticipation? Oh, wait, you haven't talked about the repressive and reactive
Oh,
of the shadow.
well, if we want to go backwards, yeah. I mean,
Why not? We're going in spirals anyway.
so when we talk about the repressive shadow of fantasy, it's dreaming, right? So that's when you're escaping life through dreaminess. So you're actually addicted to inner worlds created by your mind as opposed to living in this world. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the mental spiral of dreaming land. Now the reactive is, is bundle of nervous energy. It's hyperactive. These people always are always ahead of themselves, being carried away by the fuel of their dreams. So they're like tripping over themselves, but it's not grounded. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah, I think I've been there.
this kind
I've
of,
been that.
he says, this kind of nature inevitably leads to burnout as the power of fantasy they are trying to bring into the world outstrips the limitation of the material plane.
Oh
Like,
my God, read that again because that is very key to what teaches us finally to slow down, I think. Well, hopefully we learn.
this kind of nature, the hyperactive nature, inevitably leads to burnout as the power of fantasy they are trying to bring out into the world outstrips the limitation of the material plane. Like they are moving at the speed of light so quickly that you've got to allow space and time for it to mature and manifest itself into form.
And this is where embodiment is finally making its place on the stage. I think
Right.
for a long time we were taught that the power of our mind was so powerful, but the neurons firing and the energy flowing between our desires and our heart and our head, speed of light, right?
Right.
This body can't keep up.
Right.
So taking care of our bodies and sleeping and eating right and moving and drinking. Lately for me, I'm not drinking enough water. So there's something about learning to, oh, I need to take a break here.
Right. It's also about editing your life, like pruning back the things that are excessive or don't matter.
Yeah, no
And
longer fit, right?
right,
Like we
right,
get rid of we clean out our closets. That's easy because we're like, oh, this doesn't fit. This is out of stat. I don't like this anymore. But there's a lot of things. I mean, paper, books. It's time for me to cull the bookshelves again. And so every time some who just gave me a box of books, and I'm like, okay, that means we have to fill that box up with books going out. And we have all those little libraries, which is great. I can take and put some here and there. So those are the two ways that the shadow can show up. And I invite everyone to think about, where is it? How do you show up in that shadow of fantasy? And the other thing is to start recognizing what that feels like. Like when you get to that place of exhaustion because you're running on the hamster wheel, or and lately it's funny because I was the hamster wheel girl, and now I've turned into, just let me go hang out in my own space. I'm just going to go into dreamlands, and now I don't want to deal with people. I mean, like okay, how do I do both? How can I still, be in a part of the world and then still have my inner landscape too?
Well, and that's, I think, is the balance. And we talk a lot about balance in this key, because there is that important time to create and be in that playful space of imagination, right? But then it's like, how can you balance these two hemispheres so then you can actually say, okay, I've got that idea. How, not
I
how.
wonder how it's going to happen.
Show me, show me. Like, this is
Yeah.
where we start can link. All right, we're leaning on our divine team to assist us to help make these connections possible, not railroading something to happen, but saying, okay,
So can we also anticipate? Can we
yes,
also anticipate the support,
exactly,
anticipate the divine timing, anticipate the uh manifestation? I hate to use that word, but that we can get out of our own way and allow. I've been
right,
playing with the word receptive. Can we receive that in some form? We don't know what it's going to look like.
right,
It reminded me of being a kid at Christmas.
yeah.
Sometimes I knew what was in my boxes, but sometimes I had no idea, and how exciting that was, you know?
Well, I think that's part of it, is allowing. What I like about emanation, it is, just think about newness and it's emanating out, it's um
It's kind of radiant, right? So
yes.
it's radiant in its truth. And I think that here the lighthouse again comes into play to me as a symbol, because it just is, like you said, and it's just sending its light out.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that. So what else can we say about emanation where we don't get completely lost? Because I feel like it gets so ethereal. And
Yeah.
I want to be why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because he says emanation is a word that's been used by many ancient metaphysical and mystical systems as a mean for understanding something that's really unapproachable.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Because I can't understand it. And
Right.
so I don't need to understand it. I
No.
know it to be a truth. I trust in it to be there as a state that I would like to reach, which by the way this is the mudra.
This.
Yeah, it's kind of like a softly open, like you're kind of holding the ball of your heart or your truth or your light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just emanating. You know what? It's funny because I've been playing with this word in the last year as I journal about I want to be an emanation of truth, love, and light. And I'm like, I didn't know what I was asking for. That's a big step.
Yeah, that is one. And he says the ancient Chinese name this hexagram of the I Ching decrease, which is rather profound because the 41st city is nothing less than a black hole. Because if you look at the hexagram, it is this. It is a hole in the middle of a box.
Oh, I love it because it's also the end of something, but it's before something fills it with the new. So it is emptiness, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that. That helps me. And this is so interesting because this goes back to some shamanic practices I learned years ago, and I never could get my head to understand them. But it's a morning practice where you wake up in the morning and you go, I release to infinity. Like I'm getting rid of everything. And I bring in the fullness of life. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm emptying, but I'm filling. I'm like, I just couldn't, it didn't make sense to me. And now I'm going, oh, It's both. I'm letting go, I'm receiving, I'm letting go, I'm receiving, just like when we breathe, you know?
Yeah, I've been playing around with that this week of how can I release any other old roles that I played? Like, sure, I can accept the things that I've done, use the things that I learned from it, but I'm not attached to holding on to that title or that whatever. And I had a conversation with a couple of people who said, I am going into a new phase of my life and my kids are now grown. And like, these are huge things for us to allow life to live through us and not hold so tightly onto life
Yeah.
and what we want, what we think we want, or like, and I was thinking, even myself, I'm like, I really liked her. Like, I really liked who she was. And
But she's still there.
no,
That's
I
the thing, is
know, but
you're
it's
not.
like, but you want to like hold on to that, I guess, a persona. And
Yeah.
it's like, no,
It's
you
not,
need to,
it was part of it was your identity. And now
right.
you're assuming, just like we do when we're in those detectives, we assume a new identity. But we're also still the same person. So this is where the integration and the integral comes in.
Right.
Like, what is it that I want to keep from that? What parts of that person from my 40s or 50s is something that I want to carry with me? And this was a big journaling thing for me. This last, you introduced me to that process in December of
Mhm.
starting in this at the winter solstice and going through mid-January. And it's like, what is it that I want to keep from 2023? And what do I want to leave in 2023?
Right.
And what am I cooking up and creating in 2024? And what am I blessing and letting? This is what I loved about that, is I have never used that question before as a journal prompt. And to do this for multiple days and bless all of these things,
Yeah.
um, that was, and then compost it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was very fun.
Yeah. I got that. I got those prompts from one of my dear art mentors, Susie Baum. That was really
So good. So
yeah.
good. So anyway, as we get into this discussion around this whole gene key, what I really love is I can see how fantasy can become emanation, right?
Mhm.
When we watch some of those sci-fi or action hero movies, there's always some gem in there that opens us up to a new way of, wow, I didn't ever look at life that way before. So it's a teaching in the story, and but the fantasy had to be there to write the story.
Right.
I don't know. I'm like playing with how did we travel through that spiral, and the can we love ourselves when we find ourselves in our fantasy space, and then choose, okay, I don't want to spend all my time there. So now let's flip this to anticipation.
Yeah. And then release how good it can get, because we don't know.
Oh my gosh. Let's put a budget around it and create like structure and a foundation. And this is me in my strategic brain loves to build all of that. And so now I'm like, whoa, I'm hesitant to even, like, it's hard to even make a grocery plan right now. It's like I can't even, like, it because it is kind of like, what feels good when I'm at the grocery store? What does my body want more of?
Right.
I just found out citrus is not what my body wants right now. It's too much acid. But so how do you think we want to close this? Because this is a beautiful storytelling teaching, I think.
You could give a meditation.
Oh, I love that. And see what pops in.
Mm-hmm. Like
That's,
we could pull a card and then
let's
do a
meditate on it. Yeah, let's center on it, or let's get present with it. Or
so I've got 4 different decks. Feel into the decks. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. You let me know.
January 1.
1. Okay, so we're gonna do Wisdom of the Oracle by Colette.
We could always have Susanne sing little background music here or foreground music.
Okay. So what would you like to know for this week, please? Top, middle, or bottom?
Top.
Ooh, of course. A change in the wind.
Of course. On a horse or
on,
zebra.
on a zebra, which has got lots of stripes. So this is a change in the wind, a sense that the unseen change has been initiated. Imagine that. Preparations for a storm. Sorry.
I've been playing with that storm. Yeah.
Awareness that your plans are not on firm ground, feeling a shift, uncertain about which direction the winds will blow. And you know, that's okay. You're going to be okay. You are going to be okay, no matter how it
We are
turns.
all going to be okay.
And I think
All
that's
is
what
well.
emanation is. It's the beautiful ending of the story. When you start to see how complete life is and that we're getting to play in this storyland, yeah, it's got to have twists and turns. That's the juice of it.
Yeah.
So it's human nature to yearn for certainty and resist change.
Oh. Go ahead. Oh.
So what we want the world to remain consistent like zebra stripes. Yet nothing in the human experience is black or white, nor will anything remain static. The one thing guaranteed is change. Now is a time of transformation as the outer conditions are temporarily moving out of sync with your desires and expectations. So stay the course. Remember that even storms serve to clear the air, scatter the seeds, and nourish the soil for better things ahead. Life is about to get interesting, so anticipate it.
Oh my goodness.
So anticipate it with curiosity as you wonder what is coming on the shifting winds. The unknown is where the magic lies. I'll leave that at that. There's a couple other things in there, but I'm feeling like that's the core message.
Okie dokie.
Yes, hold on to it loosely.
Yeah, I'd say let's just drop in and play with anticipation. What does that feel like in our bodies? And the first thing we want to do is we want to ground. And by that, I mean, get your feet flat on the floor. My legs were crossed, so let's get both feet flat on the floor. Hands on your knees if you can, if you're not driving. And if you could lower your gaze, you don't have to close your eyes because it's kind of good to learn how to be present in real life as well as be present in our bodies. So as we're just allowing ourselves to pop in, drop in, tune in, notice that your breath softens and slows. And as you breathe in, feel your body. And as you exhale, soften your body. And then we allow the upper half of our body to elongate, float upwards, connect with source, just like our lower half is connected down, way down into the center of the earth. Our upper half is connected way, way, way up into our source, divine intelligence, universal love, whatever you want to call that. And then we expand. Let's take that anticipation energy and we've got this core of our divine and physicality, and we want to just extend that outwards so that your energy is reaching the corners of the room. And then you bring to mind something that you anticipate. And we're going to plant the seed of something that we anticipate. And then we just allow, just like we do when we plant seeds, we allow the sun, the water, the earth, and the air to nurture it. We don't have to do it all ourselves. And so here we are, this big, amazing Mother Earth extension, planting a seed of anticipation. And that is what brings the warmth. This is what brings our essence into the picture. What our unique brilliance and light is bringing forth in that anticipation, you know? And that's what brings your warmth and your smile to your face, because that's something that's like so yummy. We can feel it. We have no idea what it is. We can feel the juice of it and we let go. So let's breathe into that a couple more times together to give it some collective energy. In, feel your body. Exhale, soften your body. Yeah. Thank you for doing that with me.
Thank you.
That was delightful. I just can feel the anticipation. It's funny because I don't know what's in it. It's like this box or this jewel that I have no idea what it means, but it feels yummy.
Yeah.
So, are we complete?
We are complete.
Excellent.
And we'd love to just extend that coming in March. We'd like to offer this circle for people to come into. And we'll leave some details in the link below.
Absolutely. Much love, everyone. Till our next time together. Take good care.